Hello and welcome to For Fox's Sake TV. Time for the post-match analysis show. We're going to talk about Arsenal versus Leicester City Football Club. It was another loss at the Emirates, I'm afraid, in what was a pretty interesting and crazy match, but one where ultimately Arsenal ran out pretty deserved winners. Let's get into it. In the end, the game finished 4-2 to Arsenal. And I think the really unusual thing about this match is that we got 2 goals. And in fact, it was 2-2 until the 93rd minute. And I'm not sure many of us would have predicted that at the start of the day. The thing is despite the fact that that is true, at the end of the day, that is a real lie, in my opinion. Arsenal absolutely murdered us. They should have been out of sight a long time before the 90th minute. And even though we could have got away with something, if we had have done, it would have been crime of the century. We didn't deserve anything from this match. And it was only some heroic performances from 2 players in particular, Mads Hermansen and James Justin, that made it somewhat respectable. If you look at the underlying data, you won't see much of a more of a one-sided match. 75% possession to Arsenal. 4xG is what they averaged, and they got it. 10 big chances. Just for context, Leicester had 0 big chances. So even though we got 2 goals, we did it off an XG of 0.27, saying that basically we got lucky, right? Only 5 shots in total for Leicester the whole time, 37 from Arsenal, 13 saves from Mads Hermansen. That was so close to being a record for a Premier League game, which funnily enough was also against Arsenal. It was David De Gea. Comes to that in a moment. We didn't get a single corner the whole game. Arsenal had 17. I could go on and on and on. And even more, though, I think this is the match momentum that we're going to look at a bit later as well. And just not only is it pretty much all green the whole way through, but look how high up it was. It was just like wave after wave of just pressure, relentless from Arsenal. They were brilliant. We scored 2 goals, very much, well, I wouldn't say against the run of the play, in a few periods that Arsenal didn't really get control of the game. But yeah, I mean, if we'd have got anything from that, we wouldn't have deserved it. And I think if Steve Cooper thinks he's unlucky, maybe you could say we were, but we really didn't deserve anything. I'm sorry. You got to call it how it is. The data just says that this was a very one-sided game. Let's talk about the lineups. What were we going to do to start up with this one? I suggested that we might go to a back 5. We might have Conor Cody at the back and, really sit in deep. And even though we did park the bus, we actually didn't go that way. And we did play the same system that we've been doing each time. I also suggested that we might try man-for-man marking, but I knew that wasn't going to happen, and we didn't go that way. So it was just the 4-2-3-1 as per usual. We did try and keep in possession with the 3-2-2-3 shape, but for most parts of the game, we really sat in deep. And when we see someone's sort of average pitch positions and passing networks, it will really become quite embarrassing how much we sat in. In terms of the team lineup, though, what was interesting is that Ayew was finally dropped and Buonanotte came into the team. Buonanotte had a really good game, which we'll talk about in a moment. Ndidi was playing next to him, Mavididi in the team, the double pivot. So no real changes here. The change was, compared to the last game, Bilal Kanouz drops out, Skip comes back in, and we bring Buonanotte into the starting lineup. So ahead of Ayew. So those were the changes. In terms of Arsenal, prior to this game, Man City had drawn with Newcastle, so there was the opportunity for Arsenal to really make up ground on them. And whether that was or wasn't the case, they went so strong. It was crazy. This, I think, is the strongest possible lineup that they could have put out with the players that they had available. They weren't messing around. The interesting things were that they decided to play Ricardo Calafiore. I said that he would probably be the player that would invert as their inverted fullback, which is what he did. But Leandro Trossard came into the team. I thought that Ifan Nwaneri might come in. Nwaneri did come on later on in the game, but he actually started here. But interestingly, he played as an attacking midfielder. Now, I've actually got him here on the right side of their 4-3-3. But as we'll come to later, Trossard, who I think was easily Arsenal's man of the match, was absolutely everywhere. I mean, to be honest with you, I think you have to go man-to-man marking with some of Arsenal's players. Maybe not all of them. But this guy, he's causing chaos. He had a great game, super intelligent running, and he played brilliantly. And of course, up front, you've got this 3, and you've got, of course, the deadly Bukayo Saka, who didn't actually score, but was still brilliant. Martinelli, who did score and was also pretty good. So a frightening lineup from Arsenal. Really, really strong from them. Just wanted to show this quickly. I got this from Mark R Stats on Twitter, which is a good one. They only really tend to do the big 6, but when you get to play them, you'll feature in them. And here you can see that basically you've got the cumulative expected goals during a match. And really what I want to highlight here is pink here is Leicester, the blue is Arsenal, and just what a huge gulf there is. And really, it was kind of close for a little bit, but as soon as Arsenal got one, I mean, they were just running away with it. And, Leicester really didn't deserve to score even a single goal in the game. Somehow we got two. Arsenal were they just were relentless. And I think you have to give them credit. Many teams, especially after going to 2-2, they could have got a bit depressed and thought it wasn't going to be their day, but they were not having it. And champions they could be based on a performance like this. Very impressed from them. Right, let's start with the first half. And I want to talk about what I think is basically where we went wrong in this game and what we really have to fix. And to be honest with you, I think this is an issue now in all of our games. It isn't specifically the three that I've brought here, but it is somewhat related. But we have a midfield setup at the moment of Oliver Skipp, Harry Winks, Wilfred Ndidi. And you've got, let's say, a destroyer in Ndidi, even though he plays quite up high. And then you've got a kind of player who's responsible for receiving the ball off the back three, which is Harry Winks. And then you've got Skipp, which is kind of a hybrid. And I think that's, to be honest with you, the problem, because we had a different way of playing under Enzo that worked much better, which is we had two builders. Whereas right in a moment, as I'll show you in a moment, we've only really got one builder. So here are the passing networks. And thank you, Neil, to be on the 90 for providing this for me. It comes to mark our stats again. But this, I think, does the best possible job of explaining how we're set up this season and what's going wrong. So it firstly shows your average pitch position. And what's kind of embarrassing here is that this is actually across the whole pitch. So what you're seeing is that basically we sat in our half the whole game. So that shows you that we really did park the bus. What it also shows you, though, is that number 8 is Harry Winks and number 22 is Ollie Skipp. Number 6 is Wilfred Ndidi. Now, how we used to play under Enzo is we had the back three and we'd use these two midfield players here. One was Ricardo, who would start at right back but invert in. And we were playing the ball into those two. And those two would either play the ball back and forth with one another or back to the centre backs or goalkeeper, or sometimes even the number 9 would come in really deep as well to make an extra man, and they'd create passing triangles. And the reason we did this is so that we could play our way out of trouble, try and lure players into a press, and then we could play in the spaces that they vacated behind. Now, what's going wrong this season is that this is something that Steve Cooper has preferred to do at all the teams he's at. And I think it's a bit of an outdated concept. And I think over the last 2 to 3 years in the Premier League, this is where the game has gone, which is why Guardiola with Enzo invented the inverted fullback, as did Arteta. So we're playing the ball into just Harry Winks. So for the most part, you can see that we are building and looking to hit him as the guy to start our moves. And the problem with that is we shouldn't just be using one player. We should use two. We need to be using him and Skipp. Now, we did use Skipp on occasions, but we don't use him enough. And actually, you'll see in the game that the few times that we did use Skipp this way, it actually worked out pretty well for us. So I think they've got to change their positions to do that. The other thing that I don't like is that because we've got this back four, when we get penned in like this, it is a back four, which means that you've got another man that you don't really have the ability to use in terms of passing your way out of trouble. And that's like another issue. Now, there are some teams that do use a back four to build out from the back. Spain actually used it in the Euros. But when they do that, they actually get their fullback spread really far across. So you've got much bigger distance to cover, which can kind of draw the opposition wingers away from the central two, which gives them more time to play. But we're not really doing that. So as you can see, what tends to happen is that, yeah, sure, you've got the same sort of thing of Coley, Fass and Hermanson passing between them, but none of these three are hitting Winks enough. And in fact, you can see that Coley wasn't able to find Winks ever in the whole game. What? That's crazy. If that was Vestergaard, they'd probably have found 100 passes alone. Well, maybe not against Arsenal, but against some teams. So this is fundamentally wrong, in my opinion. Why has Cooper changed that? Maybe because he doesn't think Okoli is the best passer. As we'll see in this game in particular, he actually struggled a little bit. But even if he isn't, I mean, you've really got to think about that, because basically what it meant is that I'll show you. We managed to do this for 5 minutes, and after that point, we couldn't get started. And because we could never get started, we never had a chance in this game, really, apart from 2 sort of fluke goals. One was an absolute worldie, and one was, to be fair, was a decent set piece, but completely against the run of play. We need to bring them both into the game. And look, Arsenal are a top team. You're always going to struggle against them. But the thing is this same problem has also reared its ugly head in all of our games this season. And it's costing us points that we don't need to sacrifice. So we're going to talk about playing out from the back, which we tried to do, but we didn't do enough of it. And we need to go back to last season where we're doing it more. Now, I know a lot of people hate playing out from the back, but literally, this passing network shows you why you need to do it. Because if you don't play out from the back, what happens is a team like Arsenal with their aggressive press, they'll just win the ball off you every single time and you'll never see the ball. And therefore, you've got no chance of winning the game. That's why their style, Man City and Liverpool's too, is so consistent. Because it's like a boxing match where you're fighting with both your hands tied behind your back. You can't lay up a glove on them. So here's from the start of the game. And actually, for the first 5 minutes, I was relatively surprised because I thought, hello, maybe this game won't be as one-sided as it turned out to be. Here we got Fast on the ball. Fast plays it into Winks. Winks plays it to Coley. Coley plays it to Mavadidi. And here, can you see I've put the picture of the box midfield. So this is what we saw all last season. And this is great. The box midfield means that, like, they've got 3 players. Well, they've got 4, but we should be able to find an additional man, which means that we should be able to pass our way out of trouble. Mavadidi plays it into Christensen, and JJ, you can see, is now pushed up on the other side as the offensive fullback, which I don't like, but that's the system Cooper plays. Christensen plays it into Winks, and he makes the 1-2. So now Winks is going to play it this way. Although I will say, and you can see the problem already, is that when we do this, now we've got JJ and Christensen this high. It means that if there's a turnover, we're in trouble. And in fact, what happened off this sequence, I'm going to put the link below. You'll be able to go to Fox's talk, where I normally put more graphics and more examples. But even though this was really nice passing out from the back, we actually lost the ball here, and it ended up getting played into Saka. And because Christensen had pushed up, it was a bit of a tough situation coming back. Luckily, Okoli managed to deal with it, but it was a bit of the beauty and the beast. Beauty because it showed us we could play up the field, but beast because when it goes wrong, you can be in trouble. And again, I think that's the flaw of the system that we use, because those fullbacks, they don't need to be taking that many risks if we use the system from last season. Some more examples from playing out from the back. This one was better. So here we go with Fast has got the ball, and Fast plays it into Hermanson. Hermanson was unbelievable today. His price probably doubled in this game alone. He plays it back to Fast. He was really calm with his feet. Fast plays it back into Hermanson. And now what I'm ringing here is the double pivot again. So we've got Skip and we've got Winks. Now, I've got to say, I'm not the biggest fan of their positions. I think they should be both playing a bit more central. But this is actually like last season, where you'd have the option to go to either Winks or Ricardo, and they could play the bounce pass from one another. This time it actually does go to Skip. So as I said earlier in the show, the few times that we found Skip, he actually did very well with it. Look at his body position. It's really good. He's going to get it, and he's going to take it on the turn. That's a very sort of Pep Guardiola as a player. Actually, when he used to play for Barcelona, he used to do this. Pick up the ball and turn in one movement. He does that, and he's able to find Buonanotte. Now, Buonanotte is under pressure, but this is good. Although there isn't really much of a box midfield here, because indeed he's a bit far away. And Buonanotte plays it all the way back to the keeper. The keeper then plays it to Okoli. Okoli plays it into Christensen. Christian plays it in Zidi, who does a 1-2 with Mavadidi, and it gets us on our way a bit. And basically, this is really good. And I was actually thinking, okay, wow. In my opinion, if you want to have any chance against these super top teams, I don't think that just hanging on for dear life is the way to go. They're too good, and eventually they'll find a way through. What you need to do is you need to play around their press. You have to be brave at doing that, because when you do that, they will leave spaces themselves. Because look, in this sequence, look how many Arsenal players are now upfield and taken out of the game. If you can keep the move going, you can unlock their door. It's really difficult to do. That's why elite football these days is super tricky. But if you can do it, that is the route to success. And we need to do more of it. And there's a bit of a shame, in my opinion, that Enzo Maresca did go, because obviously he was trying to implement that style heavily with us last season. And I feel that this is a bit of a poor imitation so far. So coming back to the match momentum, what I want to point out is this is at the start of the game. And because we were doing this, and because we were playing our way out of trouble, Arsenal themselves couldn't really get started, and it was much more of a settled game. In fact, I think at this point in the game, we'd even had more possession than them. Only the first 5 minutes, yes, I know, but still, it kind of showed you that that was the template that you need to play. You can also see in the second half, when we got our goals, similar story. They started pretty slow coming out of the blocks, Arsenal. I think they thought they had the game won, which probably I would too if you're 2-0 up and having sort of 70% of the possession. But they fell asleep a little bit. And the other period where we got a bit more of the ball, we got to play. And I'll show you that sequence for JJ's amazing goal. Again, we did it through playing out and playing through triangles and things like this. So it worked. But they made a few adjustments, or maybe they just got themselves going. And from that point on, really, it was just all Arsenal the entire game. And their press just took over. It was relentless. Now, one reason this happened is because of some sloppy passing. And I have to say, it was specifically from Okoli. Now, I'm not going to jump on Okoli's back, because I have actually been quite impressed with him since he's come into the first team. And actually, I think his passing is better than I thought it would be. But in pre-season, I did notice he had what I'd call a clunker in him, where he'd play a poor pass and it left us in trouble. And unfortunately, he did it quite a few times today. Now, the Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool, these are the top teams. And I think a young player making their debut season in the Premier League, it's probably going to happen to them. So I'm not really surprised it happened. And I want to give him the benefit of doubt. I think I've seen enough from Okoli to see that he'll be a decent player at worst, I think. And at best, he could actually be a very good player. I could even end up being sold for a lot more money later down the line. But yeah, he struggled today. So here he's got the ball and he's trying to play the ball into Ndidi, which is fair enough. Although, again, what I don't like is why is a double pivot over here. I prefer to see them more central. So he's got that option instead of playing a more risky pass through two lines into Ndidi. But he plays the ball too hard. So Ndidi tries to get to it. But unfortunately, Arsenal can recover it in time. And now it puts them on the attack. And this is the problem. Against a top team like Arsenal, you can't do that. You need to keep the ball. You need to make them work harder for it. If you're just turning the ball over too easily, it's going to make you retreat deeper and deeper and deeper, and you're going to invite the pressure on them. And quite early on, even I saw Vardy going, get up, trying to push the team up, which is probably what Enzo's trying to do. But it's really hard to do it when things aren't going your way, and it wasn't going our way. So, right, coming on to Arsenal now, and I want to talk about some of the unique things they did, because how did they turn the game around on its head? And basically, it was two players specifically. So this is how they lined up. But the two players that I think were key to them winning this game from a tactical point of view, one was Leandro Trossard. He was brilliant. Even now, I can't even really tell you what position he played, because in all these clips that I'm going to show you, he's basically everywhere. Now, I did say in the pre-match preview that he has been taking up these clever positions. But wow, these positions were bonkers at times. And he was basically not just a free man, but a free man that could do what he wanted. And what was smart here is that by pushing up additional players, it meant that they could create an overload, have a man advantage. But that man, because he was like so free, it was almost impossible for us to work out where he was going to be. So here you can see that although I said that he's played in this picture next to Thomas, he's actually in the attacking midfield position up here. And in fact, this is Kai Havertz on the ball. So he's actually moved into the striker position here. So that's, already pretty unique. And the other player who I think had an excellent game was Riccardo Calafiore. He really looked good in the Euros. And obviously he had a great season for Bologna last year. Didn't catch too much of him in Italy. But again, he was playing as the kind of inverted fullback, but he was bombing up really high as well. At times, he was playing as an 8 or a 10 as well, box crashing. He was brilliant. And again, we've got Trossard here. And again, this time Havertz is playing further up, but now he's gone to be an attacking midfielder on the other side. So again, they're causing all sorts of problems in terms of where their players are, who's going to pick them up, and what you can do. And in this case, Fass has got him, but Winks is kind of unsure. Should I follow him or should I not follow him? And what you'll see for their second goal and the Leandro Trossard's first is that Winks actually loses track of him and he just goes in for a very easy finish. But it's really understandable to see why something like that would happen. So actually, how Arsenal were really playing is that they were moving all their players around. Again, I talked about their fluidity into these positions. So Trossard, I think, was playing, as a 10, as an 8, kind of box crashing here. Calafiore was then moving into this space. And the position that Trossard was supposed to be playing, actually, Jurrien Timber pushed right up and he was playing in this position. I'm going to come to him in a moment because he had an excellent game. Really impressed by him. He looks like a great talent. And so this just gave them tons and tons of overload. And I'll surely be able to show you the passing network for Arsenal, but they were super brave because they knew that they were going to be so dominant that they just kept their two defenders back. And they're like, we don't really think you've got much threat on the transition. And as it turned out, they were mostly right. So yeah, here are the average positions. You can see that Saliba's the furthest one back. Even Gabriel's pushed up. Like I say, compare this to the Leicester one, which is here. Leicester, this is all in our own half. Arsenal, they're basically playing in our half. Look at even Raya. Raya's so far out of his goal, he's not even really playing goalkeeper. What a joke. It's interesting that Martinelli was the one that was pushing to highest and furthest up left, but the rest of the team, look how central they are. 12 is Timber, so look how far he's come up. 33 is Calafiore, so he's, instead of playing here as a third centre-back, pushed right up here. He's even further ahead than Declan Rice. Trossard is the 19, so yeah, you can see that he didn't start here. He's actually moved as the most central player, and Havertz has drifted out to the right. So yeah, I don't like Arteta as a person, I'll be honest with you. But I've got to say that as a coach, the way that he's got this Arsenal team playing is amazing. Really exciting. One of the best teams in Europe. To get your players to be able to move in all these positions and not look weak on the transition and have that complete dominance for the whole game and to sustain it for 90 minutes, that's unbelievable. That is a top team. So coming back to us, this again is the problem. Like, we were penned into our half. We're not really sure how to deal with these threats. And it also means that, like, because we can't find Winks again, we're only finding Winks. We're not using Skip. We're not being able to play through all of the pressure. And what they've done is they've committed further men forward. So they're trying to overload us in the back here. And I think, One thing I will say, well, let's bring this up, right? So what could we do to make this better? And I've been saying this a while. Go back to the system from last season. So here's the best example I could get. And this was us playing against Bournemouth in the Carabao Cup. Now, Bournemouth at the time were a Premier League team. We were in the Championship. But the difference here is that this would be Winks and this would be Ricardo. So this would be our double pivot here. And this actually would be the striker, who in this game was Daka. But what's interesting here is that you can see that there are way more passes going it back and forth into those players, right? And this big CB here, this was Vestergaard. Actually, in this game, I don't think it was Vestergaard, but basically, our centre back is playing the ball into these two, and they're playing it back and forth. And another one is that the forward has come really deep as well. And that's important because you can see that in this one here, if Arsenal are trying to overload you and they're trying to create the man superiority, what you need to do is give yourself an extra man as well. So you can do that via the use of the striker. He can come back, give you another passing outlet to make sure that you don't just pump it long the whole time, but you can try and get some control. And what it means is you can see, like last season, is who are our biggest threats? Well, it'll be Fatawu here, who they put right wing back, but we know is a right winger, and left wing, who in this game I actually think it was Makatir, but it would be Mavadidi normally. And they would be your most dangerous players. And it was much more effective and much more stable, in my opinion. And I think we need to go back to that. Right, I did mention before the game that I thought Bukayo Saka was going to be the one to watch. He's the star boy for a reason. Unbelievable player for an English player as well. Super exciting to have him, and look at Cole Palmer today as well. Wow, they've got a really talented entire lineup at the moment, England. And he did cause a lot of problems, did Saka, but it wasn't just him, but him working with Timber worked well. So this is just before the first goal, and first up is Arsenal's aggressive press. Now, Vardy gets the ball. You can see he's got no one with him, so a really thankless task, which we thought would be the case. And actually, Steve Cooper got booked for this because he felt that Saliba fouled him. And to be honest with you, I think he's got a point. But sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't. And you still got plenty of time to defend the move from that point on. And here's where Arsenal's fluidity really works well and frankly bamboozles us. So the ball progresses now when it comes to the danger man, Saka. But what I want to bring here is Timber. And Timber at the moment is being followed by Mavadidi. But you can see this is a clear pattern of play that Arsenal have rehearsed a lot. Trossard here has moved into the middle. Havertz is playing deep there. So he's moved from false nine to the box crasher. But Timber's going to make a run from here outside. He's going to make an overlapping run this time to Saka. And Saka, look what he does. He cuts in, fakes to do a pass, but actually he plays the ball here. And you can see what the trouble is. Mavadidi is sleeping. He hasn't followed Timber the whole way. Now Timber's got a free run and he can pick up the ball here. You can see the distance between Mavadidi and Timber. And Timber's got good enough time here to put a nice cross across the box, goes to Martinelli, turns his foot back, and he puts a really good finish into the bottom left. And it's 1-0. Martinelli did have a chance just before this as well. It did feel a little bit like they'd got the goal really off their first real meaningful attack. But fair play, it was well constructed. Like I say, bamboozling the opposition block in terms of shifting players around, using an overload, and it's a goal for them. And could we have done better? Yes, but I think what we need to do is stop this cross coming in from the first place. Although it is disappointing. Here you can actually see, I think it's Winks trying to mark Martinelli. Fast and Okoli, the kind of in no man's land, not really picking up anyone, and they scored the goal. And I think that is disappointing if you look at it from a defensive point of view. That actually here, Arsenal have got 5 men in a box. We've got in the box, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 men in a box, and they still get a free shot away. This will happen against a well-orchestrated team, but that's disappointing, no two ways about it. Right, Timber wasn't done there though. Calling him Mighty Timber, he was making these runs all the time. This time he makes more of an underlapping run. Actually goes underlap to over. So yeah, underlapping into the half space. He receives the ball here, puts another really good cross. This time it doesn't go in, but again, he was just a threat the whole game. And he was really clever because even though he started as the right centre back, he was getting into these brilliant positions. That's something we saw last season from our team as well. Justin would do that a lot, or Fass. They would be used when you have a team that has that much possession. So you're seeing that kind of Manchester City, Guardiola mentality where you dominate the game through high pressing, high control of the ball, and then you start creating these overloads to take the basic 4-4-2 shape and destroy it by putting players in positions where you've got 2v1s and superiorities. And they did it brilliantly all game long. And then finally, getting in at 1-0, I would have taken it, to be honest with you. We just didn't look in the game at all. Couldn't see us even getting a shot on target. But unfortunately, right on the stroke of halftime, they score a second. The ball comes to Trossard here. And again, you can see because he's ghosting in positions, Winks this time is not getting goal side of him. So it comes to Trossard and he's just got an easy finish in there. And you could say, well, like, is that a problem that Trossard's to blame with both goals? I'm not really sure, though. I mean, in this case, you've got someone who is like a free roaming player. In this first goal, he's, it should be the centre backs, in my opinion. But we will get on to Winks. I don't think he's having the best time under Cooper. And I think it's because, well, I've shown it already. It's because he's not been given the protection with a player next to him. So there you go. It's 2-0. And we did a little bit halftime talk with the watch along on blue tinted glasses. Check out that channel. It's brilliant from my friend Locks. And I was asking the chat, who thinks we'll even have a shot on target in the second half? And no one thought we would. But somehow the second half started in a bonkers way. So first thing I want to talk about is one reason why I think we got back into the game slightly. And that is someone who's really impressed since he's come into the team, Facundo Buonanotte. This guy's mustard. I would love for us to sign him permanently. We need to stay up for that to happen. And to be honest with you, even if we stay up, he looks like a good player. I think a team I think at minimum a European team will get him, if not a better team than that. He is the business. I wanted to bring him up because here's another sort of depressing chart to look at, and it's ball progression. Who's getting the ball and either moving the ball forwards with their passing or actually getting the ball and carrying it via dribbling. This is the sort of thing that Kiernan Dewsbury Hall was a monster at last season. It was the most important aspect he brought to the team. And you can just see just how dominant Arsenal are. They have, 8 of the top 10 players, one of which is a centre-back. It's kind of embarrassing. But the one Leicester player that, did it the best, is certainly via carries, if not passing, was Buonanotte. And that's his importance to the team. I'll show you an example of that. This is actually after we got the first goal, but we had a sequence of about 5 to 10 minutes where actually we started playing a lot better and he was pivotal to doing it. So even though he started as a 10, he's drifted out here to the left-hand side. He shows for the ball after Winks gets it and spins, and now he receives the ball. So he receives the ball and he's actually got 3 men around him. And Vardy, look at that. He's absolutely got nowhere to go with all these people marking him. But yeah, Buonanotte with some really good silky feet manages to maneuver his way past all of them, and then he has a shot. The shot goes wide, but this is still pretty threatening. I did think at the time, was it greedy? Maybe he could have tried the cross into the back post there instead. But I mean, you can still see that Arsenal, despite the fact they're 2-0 up, look at this. We've got 3 men forwards versus their, 6, 7 men in the box. So it's very unlikely you're going to score. And this is, again, something about Cooper not really committing enough men forwards. Usually he puts 4 men going forward. In this move, there's only 3, which is even more weak. But yeah, Buonanotte was still starring here and doing very good. And I'll show you some more clips down below in Fox's talk. But he did some really nice moves and he was great. Now we're going to come over to the JJ show. So James Justin scored 2 goals in the game. And he had a pretty good game as a result of that. So here's the first move, and it's actually Buonanotte on the ball. We've actually scored quite a few goals off set pieces now this season. So Andrew Hughes, who's the new set piece coach, he's got to take a lot of merit. We've scored a lot of goals from set pieces. And although we did concede the goal from a set piece today, it was right at the death. And I'll show you, if I'm being honest, I think it is a combination of the players being knackered and someone taking up a clever position. But otherwise, I think he's done a very good job. He should definitely stay no matter what happens if we change manager. But I've ring Justin here. He gets the ball. Really nice crossing. Actually, Ndidi and him both got attack the ball. And it sort of comes off Justin's shoulder and it goes in. And it's 2-1. Like, wow, okay. 1 minute into the second half and we've got ourselves back into it. Crazy. And you know what? It's kind of funny how in a few games, actually, this happened also against Palace, didn't it? Where the game just started, then we scored immediately. And then, of course, what happened is Palace also scored. But yeah, the game really did change. So why can't we start like this? Well, that's the question the manager's got to answer. So now I'm going to come on to the moment of the game for us. And it was a great move. And actually, why this was a great goal is not just the finish, although that was spectacular. But this was the one time in the game where we actually played, in my opinion, proper football. And this was a throwback to last season. So Mads had the ball and he plays the ball into Skip. Again, one of the few times we managed to find Skip in the double pivot from either the goalkeeper or the centre-back. He gets the ball, plays it back. Fast gets it. Fast plays it into Winks. Winks now moves further upfield, and you can see that this is one of the first times where the entire team has managed to shift all the way up. Vardy screaming, get up, get up. Finally, we've managed to do it. We've got Arsenal camped in their half for once, and now we might have some options, and it's our turn to attack. The ball goes back to Okoli. Okoli plays it into Christensen, and Christensen plays into Mavadidi. Now on this go, I've got Mavadidi here, and we've got Ndidi in the attacking 8 here as well. And I like the positions of all the team here. This is just like last season. Winger, attacking 8, another attacking 8, striker, double pivot, and on the other side, well, in this case, it won't be another winger because we don't play 2 wingers now, but it'll be Justin. And to be fair, Justin scored. So in this case, it actually worked. So Ndidi and Mavadidi played a 1-2. Goes back to Mavadidi, and Ndidi's going to make the run down the line. So he makes the run down the line, and even though this is with his left foot, Ndidi puts in the cross. And actually, Ndidi, again, a lot of people complain about Ndidi, right? He's not good enough on the ball. He's not technical enough. But if you look at the stats, this is another assist. So he's on 4 assists for the season. And in fact, if the corner would have counted in the last game against Everton, he'd have been on 5. So say what you want, but the stats say that he's our most creative player. Maybe you could say that's what's wrong with Leicester City right now, but they are the facts. He is our most creative player. So great cross, first time with his left foot, puts it into a dangerous area. Justin gets to it. You can see how difficult this chance is on the half volley. Boom, and he curls it. Maybe the angle I've done here is a little bit over the top, but it's a really good goal, this one. And boom, into the back of the net. And somehow, it's 2-2. No one can understand what's going on. It doesn't make any sense. And you're just thinking, football. Bloody hell. What a game, mate. Only in football could something that bonkers happen. So it's 2-2. And if we're going to have any chance of seeing out this result, you know your keeper's going to have to be on it. And my God, was this man on it. This actually was on a David De Gea level of how on earth is one player actually making this many saves. Unbelievable stuff from Mads. As I say, I got this stat. Leicester City goalkeeper Mads Hermansen made 13 saves against Arsenal this afternoon, the most in a Premier League match since David De Gea, also against Arsenal in December 2017, where he made 14 saves. Absolutely ridiculous. To be fair, one save he made is because he made a really terrible pass out that led to a shot. I think he was just showing off. But, you know, Mads, he was great. He did good distribution other than that one mistake. His shot stopping was amazing. He was claiming most of the crosses. Look, in the end, I've got the stats here, which will come on to the end, but Mads got given 9.7 on SofaScore. And Neil from Beyond the 90 told me that goalkeepers, you get 1 bonus point for every 3 saves you make. So Mads got 4 bonus points. So even though he conceded 4, he got 4 bonus points. That's insane. I think it's quite sad that our best player was our goalkeeper, and Arsenal still scored 4. Just goes to show you that without Mads, I mean, it may well have been a rugby score. Ugly result. Right, it's 2-2. And I'm now using this same slide over and over in this analysis, which is why I'm not changing it. Late to make changes. This is from the Aston Villa game where they bring on John Duran and he scores immediately to make it 2-0 to Villa. It's a recurring theme, guys. It's a recurring theme. You know it. I know it. We all know it. First sub we make is in the 85th minute. And what do? We bring on Jordan Ayew. And who do we take off? Buonanotte. Who was our most progressive player when getting on the ball? Buonanotte. So in the last dying throes of the game, you want to have an outlet, an escape ball, and you take off the best player that we've got at doing that in this particular game. Does it make much sense? You judge it for yourself. Brought on El Khanous and Bobby Reed, of all people, in the last couple of minutes. All they really did was stand around and watch a goal go in, which wasn't too good. You can say Arsenal didn't make too many subs either. They put on Raheem Sterling at 74. Nwaneri, who was good when he came on, and Jesus towards the end as well for Trossard after he basically got the winner. But look, they were the team that had all the possession and didn't really need much. They were creating chance after chance. With us, well, I get what we were trying to do. We were trying to see out the game, but I think we made 2 mistakes here. I think we both didn't make subs early enough, and I also don't think we made the right subs. So I put here wrong subs at the wrong time. This is the 91st minute. It's still 2-2. Ndidi gets the ball. We're actually not in a bad shape here. And Ndidi again plays a really nice ball. Again, showing it's creative and now with his right foot. And he plays the ball over the top and he finds Jordan Ayew. And this actually is a good opportunity for Leicester. Ayew's on the ball, who's fresh. You've got Vardy, who's on the good position. And there's a couple of things we could do. Ayew could play it across to Vardy, but at worst, he could just get the ball and hold it up. And to be honest with you, even just doing that could be good. Because if you can win a free kick, which we know that Ayew is good at doing, then you could bring the entire team upfield. But instead, he's running onto the ball and he takes the touch of a donkey. There's no 2 ways to put about it. And the ball kind of goes out of play. And here you've got Vardy. Now, at first, I thought Vardy was putting his head in his hands. As it turns out, that's not the case. He was just applauding the move. But you know, if you had a better player, for example, Fatawu, who could get on the ball, I don't know, maybe Fatawu would also have done something stupid. My point is, though, is that, you know, this is a real opportunity for us in the game and we've wasted it. And we're getting tired and you need to keep the outlet. And that's the issue that we didn't do against Palace. We couldn't keep the ball, retain it further upfield. If we can't do that in the dying throes of games, then we're going to be in big trouble for the whole season. So we've done that. And now at this point, we've got Bobby Reid. And for whatever reason, Bobby Reid here is marking their tallest player, William Saliba. I don't understand that at all. That's something we've done all season. But for the most part, we've got away with it. And we also brought Kanouse on. Kanouse is here. He's, you know, just marking up here. I think that's Timber he's up against. But who I've rung here again is Trossard. And Trossard's ghosting in. And you'd think, well, here, Fass is actually looking at him. And I hope he's worried, because he should be. Because the problem is we haven't put a man on him. And what it means is he can ghost away. And, you know, if you take Trossard out of the position here, we're actually well set up. And everyone's kind of marked man for man. It'll be hard for them to score. But unfortunately, because he has ghosted here, and this looks like something that Arsenal rehearsed because they found the spare man, it comes to Trossard and he's totally free. He can get a foot in. And this is a bit unlucky because it's not like a super venomous strike, but he hits it first time. It ricochets off Ndidi and it's 3-2. And at that point, it's game over. They did score a fourth. I'm not even going to bother showing it. That was the winner, really. No, fair play, Arsenal. They deserve to get 4. To be honest with you, they probably deserve to get more than 4 goals. But it's frustrating because look at that. That's at 93.50. And literally, how long was that before? 91.07. So, you know, if we'd have kept the ball up from here, it wastes some more time, give us more time to see the game out, some better substitutions. You know, maybe... Do you know what? Last time round, I said against Palace that going to the back 5 was a mistake. But I think that was a mistake because we did it so early in the game. I think if you'd have done it in the 90th minute going to a back 5, given the fact that Arsenal by this point had already had 15 corners, I don't think it would have been such a mistake. So maybe that's what we should have done. But regardless, it's just a recurring pattern that this manager isn't able to change the game positively with his substitutes. And that's why we still haven't won a game this season in the league. Yeah, then just want to call this out, quoted by Rob Tanner, writer for The Athletic, and he's just put this in his Twitter. 97th minute, Edouard and Fatah will come on for Ndidi and for Arcoli. What's the point? Pointless subs. Do they get extra money for coming on? Then maybe they'll be thankful, but waste of time. So that's it. Sended 4-2, and this fair result, I think, and they were lucky to get the 2. Fair play to Arsenal. I do respect the guys for trying to show some fight, giving us fans something to shout about. But we're second best throughout in this one. So on to my closing thoughts. Going to show the match ratings here. You can see that for Leicester, according to SofaScore, Mads Hermansen, ridiculous, 9.7. I don't think a single player will get a better score than that this season for us. You can also see that according to them, James Justin, Facundo Buonanotte and Wilfred Ndidi had strong games. Ndidi, I will speak about quickly. A lot of people saying that we're not able to find him enough, or when he gets the ball, he's not technical enough to hold the ball. I certainly know that Luke from Leicester City Down Under, who I do a lot of shows with, feels that way. And I do sort of see his point on that. And maybe for this type of game, you could make that argument. Like ideally, I think you'd want to have 2 players like Buonanotte rather than an Ndidi and a Buonanotte. But the thing is that Kanouse, he still looks too raw. So if he can't do that, I think Ndidi is the better ones of the players we've got. And as I've shown here, although he did score that own goal at the end, he was one of our more creative players. And pretty much every game this season, he's had one of the higher ratings for the team because he makes a lot of tackles and headers. So I don't think he's our biggest problem. I know that he's talking about it being a structural problem, but in my opinion, the issue is that we're not using the double pivot correctly, right? And it's not actually the personnel. I think a lot of people are saying that Harry Winks has been below par this season. But he's below par, in my opinion, because we're not using him in the way that we should be. We just have him and Skip closer together and playing more bounce passes. People have talked about Ricardo coming in as one of those pivots instead of either Skip or Winks. I'm not against it. I think Ricardo's been frozen out unfairly, and he's a good player that can show that he can do that. And maybe putting him and Winks together is the best way to go forwards because it would be going back to last season. The one danger I want to say from this game is that Justin played brilliantly for that second goal. And of course, he got the header. But we're still getting caught out on transition. Now, the problem that I fear is that now this has happened, I don't think Cooper's ever going to play Ricardo. Because he's going to say, well, JJ's just proved himself in this, right? JJ is a good player. That's not our point, right? But we've all been saying we could put Justin onto the other side for Christensen and bring Ricardo into the team. That's part one. But honestly, in my opinion, I'll skip to this right away. But I think we need to do this. I think we need to go back to how we were last season and have two wingers and use two box crashers to get the box midfield that we had last season. I'm going to come to that in a moment, but that's what I think we need to do. So I'm going to give you my overall match thoughts. The underlying metrics say that we got battered despite us getting very close to a result. So yes, it was the 94th minute pretty much, and it was 2-2. But we didn't deserve to get to 2-2. 0.27. All right, let's double that and say it was 0.6 xg. That means you deserved one goal, not two. Arsenal, like I say, I would say they were unlucky to only score 4. They bombarded us. Cooper's system's not working. Simple as that. It hasn't worked in any of the games. 6 games now in the Premier League. We've won none of them. If it gets much longer, he's not going to be working. He's not going to be working at Leicester. That's the reality. Whether you're Cooper in or out doesn't matter. Not many Premier League managers survive that much of a bad run of form. We aren't using the double pivot effectively to build. That I think is the key problem that we've got to fix, or just play some system that doesn't rely on it. Our attack is not as potent without both wingers. I think that, yeah, the threat it did last season, it's just not as good. It's because we're attacking with 4, not 5, or in this game we're attacking with 3. You're not going to score many goals doing that way. Yes, somehow we've scored, and to be fair, we've scored in every game so far. But the metrics will catch up with you eventually. That's normally how football works. And our use of substitutes feels like sabotage, because this isn't the first game where we've done something. And basically, this is going to be the talk, I think, from a lot of fans this week is going to be, we need to talk about the fact of how many points we've dropped after making substitutes, which is kind of showing that like we're making mistakes with them. It's changing the game for the negative. Just want to show you some of the other results. So the big one here really was that Everton beat Palace. Actually, Wolves did lose to Liverpool in the end, so they remain bottom. But the result of that is that Everton go above us. We're still not in the bottom 3, but we still have Ipswich and Southampton to play. So to be fair, both of them would need to, well, Ipswich would need to get a draw and Southampton would have to win. Southampton are playing Bournemouth. Who knows? Maybe possible. So I've got a feeling we probably won't be in the bottom 3 yet, but it's getting rather dangerous. I did a little thing a few games ago saying our next 5 games, we played Palace, Everton and Arsenal now. At this point in time, I was hoping for, well, to be honest with you, I was hoping for 6 points. I would have accepted 4. We've got 2. And we've got Bournemouth and then Southampton next. And I think there's an international break after Bournemouth. I do think that then after Southampton, we've got Ipswich. And I think after the Ipswich game, if we're in the bottom 3, I think that the board will make a change because it's not looking too good so far. How do we fix things? As I mentioned, I think we need to go back to this system. In this system, I haven't put Ricardo in. I'd love to have him in. He could play as one of these double pivots if need be. Wouldn't be against that. Or put Justin on the other side. I think Okoli is still okay. Vestergaard, to be honest with you, probably should come back in the team as well for some games. And I think maybe Bournemouth is a good one to do that because they're a really high pressing team themselves. But yes, at the moment, this idea of using the high fullbacks, it's not working, Steve. It's not working. Right, that's it. Thank you very much for watching. Please leave any comments below. If you like the channel, we'd love it if you subscribe. Please give any feedback. Otherwise, thank you. And for all the good fans that went to the game, well, I don't think this one was as bad as the Everton game because at least you didn't get rained on. And at least you had something almost to get excited about. Let's see what happens in the continuing adventures of Leicester City back in the Premier League. Thank you so much for watching and see you next time. Bye-bye.